A laser pulse pierces a jungle canopy and finds a city thought lost forever. This is not magic, it is modern archaeology. Entire civilizations, once dismissed as legend, are now being reimagined through astonishing new evidence. By the end of this journey, you will see the ancient world not as a collection of ruins, but as a vibrant network of bustling, ingenious metropolises. We will discover how a society in the Americas built a city larger than any in medieval Europe, and why a desert kingdom's true wonder was hidden beneath its streets. The silent stones are finally beginning to speak. What does a lost city look like in your mind? Archaeology has traded its dusty hat for a high-tech helmet. The modern explorer's toolkit is not just a shovel and a brush, but a suite of technologies that let us see through time without disturbing a single stone. This is the principle of non-invasive discovery. Instead of digging down, we now look from above and within, using remote sensing to peel back layers of earth and vegetation digitally. The most revolutionary of these tools is called LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Mounted on aircraft, these laser systems fire millions of pulses of light toward the ground. By measuring how long each pulse takes to bounce back, a computer can construct a breathtakingly detailed three-dimensional map of the surface below. In dense jungle, this technology performs a kind of digital magic, stripping away the canopy to reveal the ghostly footprints of ancient roads, plazas, and pyramids that have been hidden for 1,000 years. Experts from leading archaeological institutions describe this as a complete paradigm shift. We are no longer just excavating sites, we are surveying entire landscapes. Satellite imagery adds another layer, analyzing subtle changes in soil moisture and plant health that betray the presence of buried walls or canals. Back on the ground, instruments like ground-penetrating radar send energy pulses into the earth, painting a picture of what lies beneath like a medical scan for the planet. Each tool has a specialty. LIDAR reveals the staggering scale of a civilization's footprint. Multispectral imaging uncovers intricate details of farmland and waterways. Three-dimensional photogrammetry then allows us to rebuild these places virtually, stone by digital stone. The power of this awakening was demonstrated spectacularly in 2016. A vast aerial survey in Guatemala, known as the Pacanam LIDAR Initiative, scanned over 2,000 square kilometers of seemingly impenetrable rainforest. In a single sweep, the data revealed more than 60,000 previously unknown structures. Overnight, our understanding of the Maya world was transformed. This was not a scattering of isolated city-states, but a vast, densely populated network of interconnected urban centers, farmlands, and fortifications. It showed a civilization of staggering complexity hiding in plain sight, or more accurately, hiding beneath a green canopy. It makes you wonder what other forgotten worlds might be concealed just beneath the surface, in places we walk past every single day. This digital veil has now been lifted, and our first reimagined city emerges from the data, a place that challenges everything we thought we knew about the ancient Americas. For an archaeologist who has spent a lifetime wading through the dense undergrowth of the Guatemalan jungle, the moment of revelation was profoundly personal. You can spend decades meticulously mapping a single plaza, brushing soil from a stairway, believing you understand the shape of a place. Then, one day, you sit before a computer screen, and the landscape you thought you knew is transformed in an instant. The LIDAR data rendered the jungle transparent, revealing not just a few more temples, but a complete urban fabric stretching to the horizon. Dr. Francisco Estrada Belli, a key researcher on the project, described the feeling as seeing the civilization for the first time. It was the difference between studying a single tree and suddenly seeing the entire forest, and realizing it was a meticulously planned garden. The classic Maya world of the Patane region was not a collection of isolated city-states dotted with ceremonial centers. That was the old story, born from the limitations of what we could physically see. The new evidence paints a picture of a continuous, sprawling megalopolis. What emerged from the digital scan was the skeleton of a vast, interconnected society. Thin, straight lines crisscrossed the canopy, revealing an extensive network of raised causeways that linked major centers like Tikal with smaller settlements, farms, and outposts. These were not simple footpaths, but engineered highways that would have facilitated trade, communication, and military movement. The data also showed intricate patterns of terracing climbing hillsides, evidence of intensive, landscape-altering agriculture designed to feed a population we had grossly underestimated. Perhaps most striking were the defensive features, like the newly identified fortress at La Cuanavilla, complete with walls, towers, and moats. This spoke not of a peaceful, priestly class gazing at the stars, but of a society familiar with large-scale conflict and the need to protect its resources and people. The density of structures, from grand pyramids to modest household platforms, suggests populations in the many millions, living in a landscape as developed and managed as ancient Greece or China. This forces a fundamental reimagining. The Maya were master urban planners on a continental scale. Their cities had suburbs, industrial zones, and intricate water management systems that included reservoirs, canals, and filtration beds. The old map, with its dots for cities surrounded by blank, green wilderness, is obsolete. The new map is a vibrant, crowded tapestry of human activity. So what does this mean for the enduring mystery of the Maya collapse? If their society was this vast, this interconnected, and this complex, then its transformation was not a simple vanishing act. It becomes a far more nuanced story of resilience, adaptation, and perhaps a reorganization so profound it made a megalopolis fade back into the forest. The city was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for us to learn how to see it. 9,000 years ago, in a dwelling in what is now Turkey, a family carefully replastered a wall. They mixed the fresh mud, perhaps adding a pigment for color, smoothing it over the stories and handprints of generations before them. Today, in a quiet laboratory, a researcher uses a microscope to examine a tiny sample from that very wall. They are not looking for grand artifacts, but for invisible residues, the molecular ghosts of daily life. This is the frontier of microarchaeology, and it is completely reimagining one of humanity's first experiments in urban living, a place called Çatalhöyük. For decades, this sprawling Neolithic settlement was described as a simple cluster of mud brick houses, a primitive step on the road to true cities. The latest evidence tells a profoundly different story. Under the direction of Professor Ian Hodder, long-term research has revealed Çatalhöyük not as a simple village, but as what he terms a history house. Here, the domestic and the spiritual were seamlessly woven together. There were no streets. People moved across the settlement by walking over the rooftops, descending into their homes through openings in the ceiling. Inside, the world was rich with symbolism. Elaborate wall paintings depicting wild animals, intricate plaster installations featuring the horns of bulls, and platforms for resting places were integrated into the fabric of the home. This was not a house with a ritual corner, it was a living ritual space. The new science allows us to read these spaces in astonishing detail. Isotopic analysis of human teeth reveals that while the community was largely agricultural, some individuals had diets or histories that pointed to different origins, suggesting a surprising mobility and diversity. Microscopic study of floor layers shows the meticulous cycles of domestic life. layers of clean plaster, hearth ash, and organic material telling a story of continual renewal and care. Perhaps most tellingly, the resting places of individuals were found beneath the very platforms where the family lived and slept, physically tying the history of the lineage to the home itself. This practice suggests a deep, tangible connection between the living and those who came before. What emerges is a portrait of a society where the concept of community was radically intimate and symbolically charged. Evidence points to households that included individuals not closely related by blood, challenging our ideas of Neolithic family structure. The lack of obvious public buildings or leaders' palaces suggests social cohesion was built from this household level upward, through shared ritual and the veneration of shared history within each home. So let us reimagine that typical dwelling. It was a layered archive. Its walls were a canvas for spiritual expression. Its floors held the compressed memories of countless meals and conversations. Its foundations cradled the physical memory of ancestors. This was a proto-city, a densely packed community of perhaps several thousand people, bound not by administration or monarchy, but by a powerful, shared world you embedded in the very walls around them. It makes you pause. If an archaeologist 9,000 years from now could analyze the residues in your own home, what story would they tell? Would they see the spaces where you gathered, the marks of your daily routines, the subtle evidence of what you held sacred? Çatalhöyük forces us to expand our definition of a city. It shows that urbanism can begin not with palaces and grand plazas, but with the profound human need to build meaning, memory, and community into every brick. From this intimate, crowded world of symbolism, our journey now takes a dramatic turn in scale and ambition, to a desert kingdom whose true marvel was not what it built upward, but what it channeled unseen beneath the sand. A single grain of pollen preserved in the mud of a vanished lake holds the memory of an entire forest. This is the quiet power of environmental archaeology, a discipline that reads the diaries of ancient climates written not in stone or clay, but in soil, seeds, and shells. To truly reimagine a lost city, we must also reimagine the world it existed within, the air it breathed, and the environmental pressures that ultimately shaped its fate. This work is called paleoenvironmental reconstruction, and it turns the landscape itself into a historical document. Specialists in this field, known as geoarchaeologists, act as detectives for the planet's past. They drill deep cores from lake beds, extracting long cylinders of sediment that are like timelines of ecological change. Within these layers, they find the subtle clues that rewrite history. Fossilized seeds tell us what crops were grown and when farming intensified. Fragments of animal bone reveal shifts in diet and domestication. Tiny particles of charcoal narrate the story of fire, whether from hearths or from widespread deforestation. Even the chemical signatures locked in ancient snail shells can record the precise temperature of the water they lived in centuries ago. For these scientists, a gradual shift in rainfall patterns or the chemical fingerprint of a distant volcanic eruption is not just climate data. It can be the smoking gun behind a city's mysterious abandonment. Take the once great Mesopotamian city of Ur. Its decline was long attributed to conquest or political upheaval, but soil core analysis from the surrounding region tells a more complex story. Evidence of severe salinization, the buildup of salt in the farmland from centuries of irrigation, paints a picture of an agricultural system slowly poisoning itself. This environmental stress, weakening the city's ability to feed itself, made it far more vulnerable to the political and military challenges that followed. It recontextualizes the fall from a single event to a slow, grinding pressure. Similarly, in the Viking world, the discovery of deep-water coral fragments in archaeological deposits at inland Scandinavian sites completely rewrote our understanding of Norse trade networks. This coral could only have come from distant, treacherous northern seas, proving these explorers were navigating far beyond coastal routes for specialized goods, revealing an economy more sophisticated and interconnected than previously believed. Perhaps the most poignant case study comes from the very edge of the habitable world, the Norse settlements in Greenland. For centuries, the disappearance of these European communities was a haunting mystery. Ice core data from Greenland's glaciers now provides a stark environmental record. It shows the Norse arrived during a period of relative warmth, but soon faced the creeping onset of a colder era, often called the Little Ice Age. Analysis of their garbage heaps or middens reveals a society that stubbornly clung to its European identity. Their diet remained heavily dependent on livestock like cattle and sheep, animals ill-suited to the hardening climate, even as archaeological evidence shows the rich marine resources of seals and fish available in the fjords beside them. The environmental record suggests a tragic failure to adapt. As the winters grew longer and the pastures thinner, their way of life became untenable. The lost cities of Greenland are not just ruins, they are a testament to a cultural choice in the face of a changing world. It prompts a reflective question for us today. What environmental diaries are our own cities writing? The layers of plastic in landfills, the chemical signatures in river sediments, the pollen from invasive plants, these will form the core samples future archaeologists will one day analyze to understand why our urban centers thrived or faltered. The story of a city is never just about its walls and towers. It is inextricably linked to the sky above it, the soil beneath it, and the delicate balance its people maintained with the world around them. Solving the mystery of why a city was lost often begins by listening to the whispers of the ancient earth itself. The echo of dripping water in a deep, silent canyon is a sound of pure survival. For the Nabateans, the builders of Petra, it was the sound of their city's heartbeat. The latest archaeological research has shifted the spotlight away from the famous, sun-bleached facades carved into rose-red cliffs and into the dark, engineered channels behind them. Petra is being reimagined not as a remote desert necropolis, but as a brilliant, living metropolis that mastered the one resource it seemingly lacked: water. Hydrologists working with the Petra Archaeological Park now describe this hidden network as the city's true wonder, a masterpiece of ancient hydraulic engineering that sustained a population numbering in the tens of thousands. Through extensive ground surveys and advanced geographic mapping, researchers have charted a vast and sophisticated system. It includes over 200 dams, diversion walls, underground cisterns, and miles of ceramic pipelines, all designed to capture, control, and conserve every possible drop in an unforgiving climate. The engineering began high in the surrounding mountains. The Nabateans did not fear the desert's rare but violent flash floods, they harnessed them. A series of strategically placed dams and diversion tunnels would intercept these torrents, slowing the water's flow and redirecting it into a main channel that fed the city. This channel, known as the Sick, was not just a natural gorge leading to the treasury, it was the city's primary aqueduct. The Nabateans carved its walls with narrow water channels and sealed them with waterproof plaster, creating a protected conduit that delivered water directly into Petra's heart. Along this route, a complex network of subsidiary pipes and channels branched off, feeding large underground cisterns carved directly into the bedrock. These cisterns, some capable of holding thousands of gallons, acted as the city's water towers, ensuring a stable supply through long dry seasons. The system even included settling tanks, where water would slow down, allowing sand and silt to sink to the bottom before the cleaner water flowed onward. This meant that a family living in a Petra home carved high on a cliff face could have access to filtered, running water delivered through ceramic pipes. This hydraulic genius allowed for more than just survival. It enabled luxury and agriculture within the city walls. Archaeologists have found evidence of lush garden plots and even public fountains. places where the sound of flowing water would have been a constant reminder of Nabatean ingenuity. Follow the journey of a single drop of water from a distant spring. It would be captured by a carved channel on a mountainside, funneled into the main sick conduit, filtered in a settling tank, stored in a cool, dark cistern, and finally piped directly to a home or garden, all by gravity. This required an intimate, generational knowledge of the landscape, rainfall patterns, and hydraulic principles that feels remarkably modern. It forces a profound question upon us today. As many of our own great cities face increasing water scarcity and the challenges of a changing climate, what lessons could we learn from engineers who, 2,000 years ago, built a flourishing urban center in the middle of a desert? Petra's legacy is no longer just one of beautiful tombs. It is the story of a society that looked at a barren landscape and saw not limitation, but potential, transforming a canyon into a thriving, water-rich hub through sheer human innovation. This reimagining reveals Petra not as a static monument to the past, but as a dynamic, living organism that thrived against impossible odds. A virtual breeze carries the scent of dust and incense as you stand in the shadow of a temple that ceased to exist over 1,000 years ago. This is not a video game, it is the cutting edge of archaeological discovery, a field where laser scans and historical data converge to create immersive digital worlds. Specialists in digital heritage are building what they call digital twins, perfect three-dimensional copies of ancient sites reconstructed with painstaking accuracy. These models begin with the raw data we have already explored, the millions of points captured by LIDAR and the detailed textures recorded through photogrammetry. But then the artistry and science of interpretation begin. Researchers must consult ancient texts, study surviving pigments, and analyze architectural principles to digitally reapply vanished colors, restore crumbled facades, and even populate spaces with virtual citizens. The result is more than a pretty picture, it is a dynamic laboratory. Scholars can use these models to run experiments that would be impossible in the physical world. They can simulate the path of sunlight through a temple on the summer solstice, testing theories about astronomical alignments. They can model the acoustics of a Maya ball court to understand how sound would have carried during a ritual game. They can even stress test the structural integrity of a building to see how it might have collapsed. One profound example is the digital reconstruction of the Roman Forum. For centuries, historians debated the exact placement of statues, the height of monuments, and the sight lines from the Senate steps. By building a collaborative virtual model, experts can now walk through the space together, arguing from within the reconstruction itself. They can move a virtual statue, observe how it changes the experience of the plaza, and reach new consensus based on a shared, tangible vision of the past. This technology also brings a powerful ethical question into sharp focus. When does a reconstruction stop being a representation of evidence and start becoming an artistic interpretation? The vibrant paint on a Greek statue or the specific crowd noise in a Mesopotamian market are educated guesses, informed by fragments but filled in by modern minds. Digital heritage specialists emphasize transparency, often building layers into their models that allow users to toggle between what is firmly evidenced and what is hypothetical. This honesty is crucial, for it invites us not into a fictional past, but into the ongoing process of discovery itself. To put on a headset and walk through a digitally resurrected city is to feel scale, space, and atmosphere in a way no textbook or diagram can provide. It makes the past accessible on a human level, allowing us to not just learn about history, but to momentarily inhabit it. And as we stand in these virtual agoras, we are left with a lingering thought. If our own cities were reconstructed 1,000 years from now, what stories would the digital archaeologists choose to highlight, and what essential truths about our daily lives might they completely miss? A single carved bird of soapstone, no taller than your hand, carries the weight of a continent's reclaimed history. For generations, the towering stone walls of Great Zimbabwe were explained away by colonial narratives as the work of outsiders, from Phoenician traders to the biblical King Solomon. The very idea that an indigenous African civilization could have engineered such a complex was dismissed. Modern archaeology has not just corrected this story, it has completely reimagined it, using the silent testimony of material culture to restore narrative sovereignty. Zimbabwean archaeologists have led this vital work, emphasizing that the evidence speaks for itself, and it tells a story of internal genius, wealth, and autonomous statecraft. The foundation of this reimagining is the architecture. The massive, dry stone walls of the great enclosure, built without mortar, curve in elegant, free-form patterns that show no influence from European or Middle Eastern design. The technique is uniquely local, a sophisticated understanding of stonework passed down through generations of Shona masons. The layout of the entire complex reveals a carefully stratified society. The hill complex perched above served as a royal residence and spiritual center. The sprawling great enclosure below, with its iconic conical tower, was likely a ceremonial space for the elite. Surrounding these were the valley enclosures, home to artisans, traders, and officials. This was not a transient settlement, but a capital city, the heart of a kingdom. The artifacts found within these walls paint a picture of a civilization deeply connected to a wider world. Evidence of sophisticated gold working abounds, from crucibles for melting the precious metal to finished ornaments. This gold fueled a vast trading network. Excavations have uncovered fragments of Chinese celadon pottery, Persian glass, and Arabian coins, tangible proof that Great Zimbabwe was a powerful hub in Indian Ocean commerce, trading gold and ivory for luxuries from across the globe. The famous soapstone bird carvings found on monoliths atop the walls are now the national symbol of Zimbabwe. They are not imports or imitations, but profound cultural icons, likely representing spiritual messengers or ancestors, deeply rooted in Shona cosmology. Each of these finds, from a shard of imported porcelain to the curve of a wall, is a direct rebuttal to the old external myths. They prove this was a homegrown achievement. It prompts a necessary reflection. How are the stories we tell about the past shaped by who holds the pen or the trowel? The reimagined Great Zimbabwe stands not as a mysterious ruin attributed to others, but as a testament to African innovation and political complexity. It forces us to listen to the evidence over the echo of outdated assumptions, revealing a capital that commanded respect and trade across continents, built by and for its own people. From this reclaimed African capital, our journey arcs across the ocean to a different kind of mystery, where the stones tell a story not of kings, but of a collective spirit that defies all conventional logic. The final resting place of an individual is a sealed archive of a lifetime. In the respectful quiet of a laboratory, an osteoarchaeologist gently examines a skeleton, and the bones begin to speak. This field, known as Bioarchaeology, does more than catalog remains. It reimagines the people of lost cities as living, breathing individuals, restoring their faces, their health, and their personal stories. The principle is profound. Bones are not mere artifacts. They are biological documents, recording a lifetime of experience in their very chemistry and structure. Every skeleton is a biography written in calcium and collagen. The wear on teeth tells a story of diet, whether coarse grains or soft, prepared foods. Healed fractures speak of survival and community care, while signs of repetitive stress on joints can reveal a lifetime spent weaving, grinding grain, or rowing a boat. Pathologies visible on bone offer clues to illnesses and hardships faced, creating a medical history spanning centuries. The tools of this science are as precise as they are revealing. Isotopic analysis reads the chemical signatures locked in teeth and bone, which act like a geographic passport. The water and food a person consumed as a child leaves a distinct marker, allowing researchers to determine if an individual was local to a city or had traveled there from a distant homeland. Ancient DNA can unravel family relationships within a tomb, trace population migrations, and even identify susceptibility to certain diseases in the past. Advanced imaging, like CT scans, allows scientists to peer inside bones non-invasively, revealing details of development, age, and even cause of passing without disturbing the individual. These techniques have led to stunning discoveries that rewrite social history. In ancient Peru, skulls have been found with precise holes cut into them, edges smoothed by healing bone, evidence of skilled cranial surgery where patients survived the procedure. Analysis of Bronze Age remains across Eurasia has traced the early spread of plague bacteria along nascent trade routes, showing how interconnectedness brought both wealth and vulnerability. In some cases, the unique skeletal markers of a craft, like the distinctive hip wear from a potter's wheel or the enlarged arm bones of an archer, allow us to identify not just a profession, but the individual artisan behind long broken artifacts. A compelling case that overturns assumptions comes from Copper Age Spain. For over a century, a burial lavished with ivory tusks, crystal daggers, and amber was assumed to belong to a high-status young man. The individual was dubbed the Ivory Man. Recently, a new technique called peptide analysis, which reads protein signatures in tooth enamel, was applied. The results were definitive. The Ivory Man was in fact the Ivory Lady. This discovery, led by researchers at the University of Seville, forced a complete reimagining of power structures in early Iberian society. Here was a woman buried with the highest wealth and symbolic offerings in her community, suggesting she held a leadership or revered spiritual role that scholars had not previously attributed to women of that era. It reminds us that our assumptions about the past are often just that, assumptions, waiting for the quiet testimony of evidence to correct them. It leads to a reflective, almost haunting question. If a bioarchaeologist 1,000 years from now studied your skeleton, what story would it tell? Would it reveal the physical signature of your daily work, the dietary marks of your culture, or the subtle traces of the environment you lived in? This science ensures that the citizens of our lost cities are not forgotten statistics, but remembered as individuals with lives, journeys, and identities, finally heard across the millennia. The force of that eruption was unimaginable, a cataclysm that reshaped a Mediterranean island and sent tsunamis racing toward the shores of Crete. For over a century, the story seemed elegantly simple. The mighty volcano on Thera, modern Santorini, exploded around the year 1500 before Common Era, burying the sophisticated Minoan civilization under ash and wave, extinguishing Europe's first great culture in a single terrible day. It is a powerful narrative, but the latest archaeological evidence suggests it is almost certainly wrong. The timeline does not align, and the true story of the Minoans is one not of sudden death, but of remarkable resilience. This reimagining hinges on a scientific detective story known among experts as the Chronology Wars. For decades, archaeologists and scientists have debated the exact date of the Thera eruption. Traditional methods like comparing pottery styles placed it around 1500 before Common Era, but new, high-precision tools have changed the conversation. Dendrochronologists who study tree ring sequences have analyzed ancient wood from Ireland and North America. They found a pattern of unusually narrow growth rings, a signature of a severe global climate shock dating to the year 1628 before Common Era. Meanwhile, glaciologists drilling into ice sheets in Greenland have identified a distinct layer of volcanic sulfuric acid, a chemical fingerprint of a massive eruption trapped in ice from that same exact period. This convergence of evidence from opposite ends of the Earth strongly suggests the thorough eruption occurred around 1600 before Common Era, a full century earlier than the old timeline proposed. This shift in dates is not just academic trivia, it changes the entire narrative of Minoan civilization. If the eruption happened 100 years earlier, then the grand palaces on Crete, like Knossos and Phaistos, were not thriving centers instantly wiped out. In fact, when archaeologists examine the destruction layers at these sites, the moments when buildings were damaged or burned, they find no significant fall of Thuran ash. The palaces show evidence of damage and rebuilding at later dates, long after the volcano had fallen silent. What emerges is a picture of a society that endured a regional catastrophe and carried on. The eruption was undoubtedly a disaster. Coastal towns on Crete were likely damaged by tsunamis, and the ash fall would have crippled agriculture in the eastern part of the island for a season. The Minoan trading network, which reached across the Mediterranean, would have been severely disrupted. But the heart of the civilization, its administrative centers and its population, persisted. For generations after the eruption, the Minoans not only survived, they continued to produce breathtaking art, complex architecture, and vibrant culture. Their palaces were repaired and modified. This forces us to separate the geological cataclysm from the eventual cultural transformation. The final decline of the Minoan world, centuries later, appears linked to a more gradual and human set of challenges. There is evidence of internal social unrest, perhaps revolutions against a priestly elite. There is also the growing influence and eventual dominance of the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece, who seem to have taken control of Knossos and adopted much of Minoan culture for their own. The old textbook narrative is clean, a civilization killed by a natural disaster. The new story is messier, more human, and ultimately more interesting. It is a story of a people who weathered a world-changing event, adapted to new realities, and whose legacy was slowly woven into the fabric of another culture rather than being abruptly erased. It makes you wonder, why are we so drawn to tales of sudden, catastrophic endings? Perhaps because they provide a simple answer to the complex question of why great things fade. The truth, as the Minoans show us, is usually a longer, quieter story of change, adaptation, and the slow turning of a historical page. A mosaic floor holds 1,000 stories, but none are written in words. For countless ancient cities, from the enigmatic Indus Valley to the ritual landscapes of the Andes, there is no Rosetta Stone, no library of clay tablets to translate their world. Their history is inscribed in a different language, one of symbol, gesture, and ephemeral trace. To reimagine these places, we must learn to read the unwritten. This is the domain of cognitive archaeology, a field that seeks to reconstruct past ways of thought through the material things people left behind. It operates on a powerful principle, that human minds express themselves through the objects they make and the spaces they shape. An art historian does not just see a painted pot, they see a canvas for cultural values. An anthropologist does not just catalogue a burial, they read a statement about beliefs in an afterlife. Every choice, from the pattern on a seal to the orientation of a doorway, is a piece of a larger cognitive puzzle. Take the mysterious seals of the Indus Valley civilization. These small, carved soapstone squares are covered with elegant, undeciphered script and images of mythical beasts, like a recurring unicorn-like creature. Without a translation, how do we proceed? Experts analyze the iconography, the system of images, the consistent presence of certain animals, perhaps combined with ritual objects, suggests these were not just name stamps, but powerful amulets or administrative tokens linked to a shared religious or social ideology. The very act of standardizing these symbols across a vast region implies a deep, common way of seeing the world. Similarly, in the stone circles and temples of Neolithic Europe, archaeologists use spatial analysis and acoustics to reconstruct experience. By mapping where specific artifacts like finely polished axes or animal bones were deposited within a site, they can infer different activity zones, perhaps areas for preparation, performance, and offering. Some researchers have even demonstrated how the architecture of these spaces manipulates sound, creating echoes or dead spots that would have profoundly shaped chanting, drumming, and the feeling of a ceremony, giving us clues to the sensory impact of ancient ritual. On a smaller, more intimate scale, use where analysis reveals the biographies of everyday objects. A microscope can distinguish the fine striations left on a flint blade from cutting meat versus scraping hide, or the polish on a stone from years of grinding grain. This transforms a silent tool into a record of daily labor, telling us not just what was made, but how it was used and, by extension, how tasks were divided and skills were valued within a home. A brilliant case of interpreting the unwritten comes from the Nazca lines in Peru. For decades, the vast geoglyphs etched into the desert floor were seen primarily as astronomical calendars or messages to deities. Recent ground-level archaeology has shifted that understanding. Surveys around the lines have uncovered small ceremonial platforms, fragments of colorful pottery, and offerings like spondylus shells, which were associated with water and fertility. This evidence suggests the lines were not meant to be seen from above, but to be walked. They were processional pathways, places where communities gathered for rituals likely connected to the most vital concern in a desert: water. The act of creating and maintaining the lines, of walking their paths during ceremonies, was the point, a collective performance that reinforced social bonds and appealed to the forces of nature. This leads to a fascinating, almost playful reflection for our own time. If a future archaeologist with no knowledge of our language unearthed the ruins of our cities, how would they interpret the universal symbols of our age? They would find the stylized apple, the swoosh, the bird in flight. Without a user manual, would they understand these as brands, or might they reconstruct them as religious icons, clan totems, or markers of social status? The exercise reveals a profound truth that much of a city's soul, its deepest beliefs and daily rhythms, is communicated in a silent vocabulary of form, pattern, and place. It is a language we are only now learning to hear. Angkor Wat is not a lonely temple in the wilderness. It is the ceremonial heart of the largest pre-industrial city on Earth. For centuries, visitors marveled at its stone towers, seeing a magnificent but isolated monument. The truth, revealed by decades of painstaking aerial photography and advanced radar surveys, is breathtaking in its scale and ambition. Angkor was a low-density, engineered metropolis that sprawled over 1,000 square kilometers, a carefully planned landscape where nature and infrastructure were woven into a single, living fabric. This reimagining comes from the Greater Angkor Project, an international team whose work has transformed our understanding of the Khmer Empire's capital. They describe it not as a conventional, dense urban core, but as a garden metropolis, a vast network of homes, temples, roads, and canals set within a managed tropical forest. The genius of Angkor was not just in its stone monuments, but in its mastery of water. The city was a colossal hydraulic machine. An elaborate grid of canals channeled water from the Siem Reap River and the massive Tonle Sap Lake into every district. Enormous reservoirs called barrays acted as giant batteries for the monsoon rains. The most famous of these, the West Barray, is an artificial lake 8 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide, holding over 50 million cubic meters of water. This system was the economic and ecological backbone of a society that supported a population approaching 1 million people at its height. The canals did more than just irrigate. They stabilized the groundwater, preventing the soil from becoming too waterlogged or too dry. They provided transportation routes for moving people, goods, and building materials like the sandstone for the temples. They even formed defensive moats around central precincts. The water network was also a profound symbol of divine kingship, demonstrating the ruler's power to control the very elements and ensure the fertility of the land. The evidence for this sprawling city is etched into the earth itself, visible from the air. Radar imagery cuts through vegetation to reveal the ghostly grid of roads and canals that organize the metropolis into districts. Around the grand temples, archaeologists have mapped thousands of small household ponds. Each pond served a family compound, providing water for daily life, raising fish, and watering gardens. This pattern reveals a city of dispersed homesteads, not crowded tenements, all connected by the engineered water grid. To understand daily life here, follow the journey of a Khmer rice farmer. They would rise in a home nestled among trees, drawing water from their family pond. To reach their fields, they might travel along a straight, tree-lined canal. During the dry season, the life-giving water for their rice would come from the giant barrays, released through a managed system of gates and channels. Their spiritual life centered on the local neighborhood temple, a smaller version of the grand state temples, which was also integrated into the water network, often surrounded by its own moat. Every part of their existence, from meal to market to prayer, was facilitated by this planned environment. Yet, this masterpiece of engineering also contained the seeds of its own transformation. Recent studies of the canal sediments tell a story of increasing strain. Evidence suggests that over centuries, the system became vulnerable. Deforestation for agriculture and settlement increased erosion, which silted up the crucial canals. Periods of intense monsoon rains and prolonged droughts, possibly linked to a shifting climate, placed unbearable stress on the intricate water management network. The city did not suddenly collapse, it gradually transformed. As the hydraulic system became harder to maintain, the population likely dispersed, and the political center of gravity shifted. Angkor's story challenges our modern idea of urban sustainability. Here was a society that flourished for centuries by designing its city as an extension of the natural watershed. Its eventual receding reminds us that even the most brilliant human systems exist in a delicate conversation with the environment, a conversation that requires constant adaptation. The silent grid of canals beneath the Cambodian soil is not just an archaeological wonder. It is a timeless lesson in building with nature rather than against it. The beam from a particle accelerator is a time machine. In a clean laboratory far from any excavation trench, a scientist focuses this incredible tool not on the fabric of the universe, but on the surface of a corroded bronze spear tip. This is the new frontier of archaeology, where the hard sciences of chemistry and physics are providing definitive answers to questions that artifacts alone could never solve. The principle at work is provenance, the study of origin. Every material on Earth carries a hidden chemical passport, a unique signature imprinted by the geology of its birthplace. Experts in archaeological science use this to trace the incredible journeys of objects across the ancient world. Elements and their isotopes, which are atomic variations of those elements, act as fingerprints. The ratio of lead isotopes in a copper ingot, for example, is as distinctive as a DNA profile, pointing directly to the specific mine where the ore was extracted. One of the most accessible tools is X-ray fluorescence, or XRF. A handheld device can be pointed at an artifact, and within seconds it reveals the precise elemental cocktail that makes up its metal, ceramic, or pigment. This non-destructive test can instantly flag an anomaly, like the presence of a modern alloy in a supposedly ancient bronze statue. For more precise sourcing, researchers turn to lead isotope analysis. By vaporizing a microscopic sample in a mass spectrometer, They can measure the exact isotopic signature and match it to geological databases of known mines across the globe. This technique solved a mystery that had puzzled historians for generations. In the ruins of Mesopotamian cities, archaeologists kept finding tools made from obsidian, a volcanic glass. Yet there are no volcanoes in Mesopotamia. Where was it coming from? Lead isotope analysis provided the answer, tracing nearly all of it back to specific flows in the Anatolian region of modern Turkey. This proved the existence of long-distance trade networks thousands of years earlier than previously believed. The continual refinement of radiocarbon dating offers another layer of chronological precision. By using advanced calibration curves and dating individual seeds or twigs rather than bulk charcoal, scientists can now pinpoint events to within a few decades, tightening the timeline of history and allowing us to see cause and effect with new clarity. Perhaps the most celebrated case of chemical detective work comes from a shipwreck off the coast of Turkey at Uluburan. This Bronze Age vessel, sunk around 1300 before Common Era, was a floating treasure chest carrying 10 tons of raw copper ingots, vibrant blue glass, ebony logs, and precious tin. For years, the origin of that tin, a vital component for making bronze, was a complete mystery. Recent isotopic analysis performed on the ingots delivered a staggering result. The tin did not come from nearby sources, but from mines thousands of kilometers away, in what is now Uzbekistan and Tajikistan in Central Asia. This single chemical fact rewrote the map of Bronze Age economics. It revealed a supply chain of astonishing complexity and scale, where raw materials traveled from the heart of Asia through intermediaries to be loaded onto a ship in the Mediterranean, bound for the palaces of mighty empires. The fusion of disciplines turns speculation into solid evidence. It allows us to trace a Viking nail found in Newfoundland back to Scandinavian iron, confirming their transatlantic presence. It can distinguish a genuine Roman coin from a brilliant modern forgery based on impurities that ancient smelters could not remove. It makes you wonder what common material from our own time will become the unmistakable chemical signature of the 21st century for future scientists. Will it be the unique polymer blends in our plastics, the lithium from our batteries scattered across landfill layers, or the specific isotopic fallout from nuclear age processes locked in our steel? The silent objects in museum cases are now whispering their deepest secrets, and for the first time we have the tools to listen. The coral stone walls of Kilwa were not built by foreign merchants passing through. They are the enduring signature of a sophisticated, sovereign African civilization that commanded the Indian Ocean trade. For too long, the magnificent ruins along the East African coast were mislabeled as Arab or Persian colonies, their grandeur attributed to outsiders. The latest archaeology has completely overturned this view, reimagining cities like Kilwa, Jede, and Mombasa as the cosmopolitan hearts of a unique Swahili world, a powerful synthesis born from African agency. Excavations led by African scholars reveal a society with deep local Bantu roots, one that selectively engaged with global currents to forge something entirely new. The layout of a classic Swahili stone town tells this story. Grand coral rag houses were built around central courtyards, a design reflecting the traditional extended family compounds of the Bantu interior, simply translated into permanent, elegant stone. Within these homes, archaeology finds evidence of a vibrant local industry, from the forging of iron tools to the crafting of exquisite, locally glazed pottery decorated with African motifs. Even the written word bears this fusion, with early inscriptions in the Swahili language itself, using the Arabic script adapted to record local poetry, laws, and history. This was not a foreign implant, but a conscious cultural creation. As one leading scholar of Swahili history notes, this was globalization from the inside out, a process where African communities were the active architects of their own cosmopolitan identity. The evidence for their wealth and sophistication is everywhere. The Grand Friday Mosque at Kilwa, with its intricate domed roof, was constructed from locally quarried coral stone by local artisans. Elaborate tombs commemorate not foreign overlords, but local sultans who traced their lineage and legitimacy to African ancestries. Perhaps most telling are the everyday garbage heaps, the middens. Here, archaeologists sift through layers containing the bones of deep ocean fish like tuna, proof of advanced maritime tradition, lying side by side with delicate fragments of imported Chinese celadon and Islamic glassware. This speaks of a society that enjoyed the fruits of a vast trading network while maintaining its own distinct palate and way of life. Picture a merchant in 14th century Kilwa. He would wake in a multi-story stone house, its ceiling beams carved from mangrove timber. After praying in the soaring, columned mosque, he would walk to the bustling harbor, a place where his own people built the massive ocean-going D-house. There, he would oversee the loading of gold, ivory, and timber from the African interior, negotiating directly with traders from Arabia, India, and even China for silks, spices, and porcelain. His authority was rooted in local custom and kinship, his wealth generated by African resources, and his worldview shaped by a fluid blend of Bantu, Islamic, and Indian Ocean influences. This was a central player in a medieval world system, not a peripheral outpost. It makes you reflect on the nature of cultural identity itself. In our own globally connected era, how do we blend influences to create new, hybrid ways of being? The Swahili stone towns stand as a timeless testament to the power of synthesis, proving that engaging with the world does not require surrendering your own soul, but can become the very material from which you build a stronger, more distinctive self. That moment of silent awe when a descendant sees their ancestors' world reborn in pixels is where the real work of archaeology begins. This is not just about scientific discovery, it is about profound ethical responsibility. Every reconstruction, every published finding, answers a fundamental question: who owns the past? For indigenous archaeologists and heritage professionals, the answer is clear: the past belongs to the living communities who are its direct inheritors. The thrill of reimagining a lost city carries with it a moral weight, a duty to navigate issues of representation, respect, and potential harm. At the heart of this is the concept of cultural intellectual property, the idea that a community's stories, symbols, and traditional knowledge are not free for anyone to use or interpret. It asserts a people's right to control their own narrative, especially when that narrative involves sacred sites or traumatic histories. This ethical framework has led to major shifts in practice. One of the most significant is the repatriation movement, the return of human remains and sacred objects to their communities of origin. In the United States, a landmark piece of legislation called the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, passed in 1990, created a legal pathway for this process. It acknowledges that museums and universities do not have an inherent right to hold these items, and that their proper resting place is often with the people for whom they hold deep spiritual meaning. Beyond physical repatriation, there is a growing emphasis on collaborative research models. This means archaeologists no longer arrive as outside experts to study a community, but instead work as partners from the very beginning. Local knowledge holders are consulted on research questions, involved in excavations, and help interpret the findings. This approach treats communities not as subjects, but as co-authors of their own history. The global fascination with archaeological wonders also brings the challenge of tourism. While it can provide vital funds for preservation, an uncontrolled influx of visitors can physically damage fragile sites, eroding ancient stones and altering microclimates. Organizations like UNESCO, through its World Heritage Site designations, work to establish guidelines that balance public access with long-term conservation. Even the digital realm requires ethical protocols. When creating a three-dimensional model of a sacred ceremonial space, researchers must now ask, should this be shared openly online, or is its knowledge meant to be restricted? The decision to publish such a model is increasingly made in consultation with community leaders. Consider the ongoing conversation surrounding China's terracotta army. The site is a source of immense national pride and a global archaeological icon. Yet, its management involves constant balancing. There is the pressure of millions of visitors against the need to preserve the delicate, painted surfaces of the figures still being unearthed. There are debates about how many warriors should be left in situ, exactly as they were found, versus how many should be restored and displayed for public education. The site embodies the tension between a nation's patrimony and the world's shared cultural heritage. This leads to a reflective question for each of us as viewers and consumers of these stories. When we look at a photograph of an ancient tomb or watch a documentary about a lost civilization, what is our role? Are we respectful visitors seeking understanding, or are we entitled spectators treating the past as mere entertainment? The ethics of reimagining remind us that these are not abandoned places. They are landscapes still charged with meaning, connected to living people and enduring cultures. Our fascination must be tempered with humility, recognizing that the most accurate reimagining is one that listens first and foremost to the voices of those for whom the past is not lost at all, but is a vital part of who they are today. The true end of an empire is not always marked by a final battle, but sometimes by the quiet closing of an archive. In the burned ruins of a royal palace at Hattusa, archaeologists uncovered a library not of scrolls but of thousands of fired clay tablets. These cuneiform records survived the very fire that destroyed the city, preserving the administrative mind of the Hittite Empire. This discovery reimagines Hattusa, a sprawling capital in the highlands of modern Turkey, not as a remote fortress, but as the resilient, bureaucratic heart of a Bronze Age superpower that mastered the art of endurance. The Hittites did not rule through brute force alone, but through a sophisticated system of law, logistics, and diplomacy that allowed them to withstand shocks that would have shattered lesser states. Hittitologists now describe their realm as a kind of network state, a complex web of alliances and legal obligations that bound a diverse empire together. The evidence for this resilience is written in clay and carved into the landscape itself. The city's defenses were not a single wall, but a layered system of monumental gates and cyclopean stone ramparts that were repeatedly rebuilt and improved over centuries, showing a long-term commitment to security. Scattered across the site are the foundations of enormous subterranean grain silos, each capable of holding enough food to feed thousands, a clear strategy for ensuring food security during sieges or poor harvests. But the most telling clues come from the tablets themselves. They record a state deeply concerned with managing crisis. There are detailed edicts for managing famine, including price controls on grain and instructions for equitable distribution. There are prayers and rituals addressing outbreaks of illness, showing a government attempting to confront health challenges through both spiritual and practical means. Perhaps most remarkably, the archives are filled with treaties. The Hittites perfected the art of the vassal treaty, binding neighboring kingdoms to them through carefully negotiated oaths that outlined mutual obligations, rather than through permanent, costly military occupation. They also used strategic diplomatic marriages, sending Hittite princesses to wed foreign kings, weaving a network of familial loyalty across the Near East. The empire's adaptability extended to culture and technology. They practiced a policy of religious incorporation, welcoming the gods of conquered or allied peoples into the official state pantheon, a move that secured the loyalty of diverse populations by honoring their deities. Archaeologists have also found some of the earliest evidence of systematic ironworking at Hattusa, suggesting they were pioneering new technologies to gain an economic and military edge. Even in decline, the Hittite state showed a capacity for transformation. After a period of instability, possibly linked to broader regional upheavals and internal succession conflicts, the capital was not merely abandoned. Evidence suggests a deliberate, strategic relocation of the royal court to a new, more defensible location in the south, an attempt to preserve the core of the state in a changing world. To see this system in action, picture a Hittite official during a severe drought. He would not be a warrior but a scribe. In a storeroom lined with clay tablets, he would consult records of grain reserves from silos across the realm, draft orders for redistribution to the hardest hit provinces, and reference treaty obligations to request aid from allied states. His power lay in information and administration, not just the sword. This raises a profound question for our own complex world. What modern institutions, treaties, and logistical systems act as our societal grain silos and clay tablet archives, the unseen frameworks that allow us to absorb shock and adapt? Hattusa's legacy is a lesson in managed complexity, proving that the strength of a civilization often lies not in its impervious walls, but in its flexible, forward-thinking mind. That romantic 19th century engraving of a lost city in the Amazon, all crumbling spires draped in vines, was a complete fantasy, yet it sent real men with machetes into the jungle for decades, driven by a story they desperately wanted to be true. This is the other side of our journey, a crucial counterpoint. Sometimes the most captivating lost cities are the ones that never existed, born not from evidence but from our own myths and misinterpretations. Reimagining the past requires us to occasionally let go of a beautiful fiction. The allure is powerful. For generations, the legend of El Dorado, a city of gold, or the lost continent of Atlantis, a perfect civilization swallowed by the sea, have captured our collective imagination. Historians of archaeology note these stories often emerge from a specific cultural moment, reflecting the desires and anxieties of the societies that tell them. The age of exploration, for instance, was ripe with tales of wealthy, unknown kingdoms, justifying and fueling further voyages into uncharted territories. This intersection of legend and exploration gave rise to what scholars term pseudoarchaeology, the interpretation of the past through a predetermined narrative, often ignoring or twisting evidence to fit a preconceived idea. It is a reminder that we do not dig in a vacuum, we dig with all our hopes and biases in tow. A telling pattern emerges across the Americas. In both Mesoamerica and the Andes, Spanish chroniclers recorded indigenous stories of a wise, bearded stranger who brought civilization, known as Viracocha or the feathered serpent deity Quetzalcoatl. Later interpreters, unwilling to accept the sophistication of native cultures, seized upon these myths. They argued these figures must have been visiting Europeans, perhaps lost Vikings or even a wandering apostle, thereby crediting an outside, often white, culture bearer for achievements that were wholly indigenous. This misinterpretation served a political purpose, denying the innovation and deep history of the peoples already there. The tools for critical evaluation are our best defense against such stories. They begin with scrutinizing the source, who recorded the myth when and for what audience. We must demand reproducible evidence, the kind that can be verified by different teams using scientific methods. And crucially, we must understand the cultural context of the myth makers themselves. What did they believe and what were they trying to prove? The story of Heinrich Schliemann is a classic cautionary tale. A businessman obsessed with Homer's Iliad, he used the epic poem as a literal treasure map to find the city of Troy. His driven search did, astonishingly, lead to the discovery of a very real, very ancient city at Hisarlik in Turkey. But in his fervor, he disastrously conflated the archaeological layers with the poetic saga, dynamiting through centuries of history to reach what he declared was Priam's treasure. He found a city, but he also created a myth of his own, blurring the line between heroic discovery and destructive confirmation bias. A more recent case illustrates the ongoing challenge. In the jungles of Honduras, a LIDAR survey revealed the clear outline of a previously unknown settlement. The site was real, a significant discovery. But the media instantly dubbed it the legendary city of the monkey god, wrapping it in sensationalist lore of a cursed, white stone city. The archaeologists on the ground then faced a dual task to study the factual, earthen pyramids and plazas they found, while carefully disentangling them from the fictional, Hollywood-inspired legend the public now expected. Their work became an exercise in managing expectations, presenting a human settlement of farmers and leaders, not a mythical treasure vault. It prompts a moment of self-reflection for all of us. What modern lost city stories do we uncritically believe because they perfectly fit a narrative we find comforting or exciting? The reimagining of our past is not just about building up new visions. It is also about the disciplined, sometimes disappointing, work of dismantling the old ones that were built on sand. The sheer scale of Teotihuacan is humbling, a geometric grid of power stretching toward distant mountains. Yet the city's true genius is not found in its looming pyramids, but behind the unassuming doorways that line its broad avenues. Step through one, and you enter a different world entirely, a vast, labyrinthine apartment compound housing dozens of families. This is the key to reimagining Teotihuacan, a metropolis that thrived for centuries on a social experiment unlike any other in the ancient Americas. While its Maya contemporaries celebrated dynastic kings in stone, Teotihuacan presents a puzzling absence. Archaeologists have searched in vain for palaces of a single ruler, for grandiose tombs filled with personal treasure, or for monuments glorifying military conquests of a specific leader. Instead, the city's art is dominated by repetitive, almost impersonal images of nature deities, storm gods, and abstract symbols. This has led experts like the late Dr. George Cowgill to describe it not as a city of kings, but as a city of tenants, possibly governed by a collective council or a rotating leadership drawn from its powerful neighborhood compounds. The evidence for this collective life is written in the very walls of these residential complexes. Thousands of them have been mapped, each one a miniature, self-contained urban village. They followed remarkably standardized layouts, built around central courtyards with shared ritual altars. Different wings housed families, often grouped by their profession. In one compound, you would find the workshops of obsidian knappers, the volcanic glass gleaming in piles of sharp blades and tools. In another, the courtyards would be dedicated to potters, with kilns and bins of colored clay. Murals inside these homes did not depict scenes of battle or individual triumph, but lush, symbolic gardens, flowing water, and deities like the great goddess, a figure associated with fertility and the life-giving forces of the earth. This was a society that invested its artistic energy in celebrating the collective well-being and the natural order, not the ego of a ruler. The origins of this diverse population remain one of the city's great mysteries. Isotopic analysis of remains reveals people had come from all across Mesoamerica, drawn to this immense urban project. They lived in their distinct ethnic neighborhoods, like the Oaxaca barrio or the Merchants' Quarter, yet they all participated in the shared Teotihuacan identity, wearing similar clothing and adopting the city's unique artistic style. This carefully balanced world did not end with a slow decline. Around the year 550, something shattered the peace. The civic core of the city, its temples and administrative buildings along the Avenue of the Dead, was violently burned. Statues were deliberately smashed and scattered. This was not an invasion from outside, but a profound internal convulsion, perhaps a revolt against the ruling system itself. Yet Teotihuacan's influence was so profound that it outlived its collapse. Centuries later, the Aztecs would look upon these silent, overgrown ruins with awe, naming it Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were born. They believed the present world was created here among these very pyramids. To understand daily life here, follow a master obsidian worker through her day. She would wake in a room opening onto a sunlit courtyard shared by several related families. After a morning meal, she would move to the compound's workshop wing, where the sound of precise flaking would fill the air as she and her neighbors shaped razor-sharp blades for trade across the empire. In the evening, the community might gather in the central patio for a ceremony at the compound's altar, the murals of blooming flowers and dripping water surrounding them, reinforcing their connection to the city's life-sustaining ethos. Her identity was tied to her skill, her compound, and her city, not to a distant, deified king. It makes you wonder, in our own era so fixated on charismatic leaders and personal legacy, could a metropolis of 100,000 people truly flourish for centuries by emphasizing the collective over the individual? Teotihuacan stands as archaeology's most compelling argument that it might just be possible, a haunting, beautiful alternative written not in grand monuments to men, but in the quiet, organized hum of 1,000 interconnected homes. A coastal archaeologist in Scotland does not dig, she salvages. Her work is a desperate race against the tide, documenting ancient hearths and middens that crumble into the sea with each passing storm. This urgent, heartbreaking effort defines a new and critical field, climate archaeology. Our warming world presents a profound paradox, acting as both an unprecedented destroyer of heritage and an accidental, revealing force. As glaciers retreat and shorelines vanish, we are losing irreplaceable chapters of human history while simultaneously uncovering others that have been locked in ice or mud for millennia. Specialists from groups like the Scottish Coastal Archaeology and the Problem of Erosion Trust describe the situation as a crisis of immediacy. They are not planning long-term excavations, but conducting rapid surveys and rescues, knowing that sites which have survived for thousands of years may be gone within a single generation. The threat is multifaceted and relentless. Rising sea levels and increased storm surges are eroding coastal settlements worldwide, from prehistoric shell mounds in Florida to Viking-age farms in Greenland. In the Arctic, thawing permafrost is a double-edged sword. It is exposing incredibly preserved organic materials from ancient hunting camps, items of wood, leather, and fiber that normally rot away. But once exposed to air and warmer temperatures, these priceless artifacts can decay and vanish in a matter of years, a fleeting glimpse of a past that melts away before our eyes. On the other hand, severe droughts linked to climate shifts are pulling back the veil on landscapes. In England, receding tides and shifting sands revealed the stark timbers of Seahenge, a 4,000-year-old ceremonial monument. In reservoirs and lakes across Europe and the Americas, plummeting water levels have exposed the foundations of lost villages, ancient bridges, and even forgotten cemeteries, offering a brief window for study before the waters rise again. The response is a blend of cutting-edge technology and urgent fieldwork. Teams are using three-dimensional laser scanning and photogrammetry to create perfect digital twins of threatened sites, preserving them in virtual space even as their physical forms are lost. This digital archive becomes the only record for future generations. Some of the most startling discoveries are coming from high-altitude ice patches, like those in the mountains of Norway. As these perennial ice fields melt, they are releasing a treasure trove of artifacts frozen in time. Hunters who lost arrows or dropped tools on these snowy passes thousands of years ago could never have imagined they were creating a time capsule. Archaeologists are now recovering perfectly preserved Viking Age skis, tunics woven from wool, and arrows with their feather fletching still intact, items that provide an intimate, tangible connection to daily life in a cooler world. A powerful case study unfolds in the Yukon Territory of Canada. There, the rapid retreat of glaciers is exposing ancient hunting grounds. Researchers have discovered throwing darts, carved walking sticks, and even the remains of a caribou hunting blind, all emerging from ice that has not melted since the last time global temperatures were this warm, over 5,000 years ago. These artifacts offer a poignant snapshot of a human society adapted to a different climate, a direct material link to an era that mirrors our own warming planet. This leads to a sobering, inescapable reflection. The same global phenomenon that is revealing these ancient, hidden worlds is the very force that now threatens the coastal cities, farmlands, and infrastructures of our own civilization. Archaeology has always worked against time, but now it operates on a climate clock, counting down the moments we have left to learn from the past before it is rewritten by the rising sea. A city can achieve greatness without a single palace or a monument to any king. The vast, grid-planned streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa stand as a profound puzzle, a civilization that mastered urban living on a colossal scale, yet left behind no obvious temples to gods, no grandiose statues of rulers, and a startling scarcity of weapons. To reimagine the Indus Valley civilization is to confront a silent alternative to history's usual narrative of power. For over 600 years, these cities thrived across a region larger than ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. Yet the material record whispers of a society that may have prioritized social harmony, craft, and breathtaking civic order over the glorification of individuals or the machinery of war. Leading researchers like Dr. Jonathan Mark Kenoyer point to the evidence embedded in the bricks themselves. The entire civilization used standardized, kiln-fired bricks in a precise ratio, a uniformity that speaks of shared technical knowledge and possibly centralized planning that transcended any single city-state. Walk down a street in Mohenjo-Daro, and you are walking on the world's first known city-wide sanitation system. Nearly every house had a bathing platform and a latrine, with waste channels feeding into covered drains that ran beneath the main avenues, a level of public health engineering unmatched for millennia. This was not a society investing its surplus in monuments to a pharaoh's ego, but in the collective well-being of its citizens. The most iconic structure is not a temple or a palace, but the Great Bath, a large, watertight tank built with exquisite precision. Scholars interpret it as a public ritual space, possibly for communal purification ceremonies that reinforced social bonds rather than the authority of a priest-king. The economy was regulated with remarkable consistency. Small, cubical stone weights have been found from one end of the civilization to the other, following a strict binary and decimal system. Intricately carved seals depicting animals and an undeciphered script were likely used by merchants to stamp goods, guaranteeing quality and ownership in a vast trade network. Imagine a merchant in the coastal port city of Lothal. In a warehouse by the world's earliest known dock, he oversees the loading of a ship bound for Mesopotamia. His workers pack uniform trays of vibrant carnelian beads, each batch sealed with his personal stamp depicting a unicorn-like creature. The weight of the shipment is verified using the same standard weights found in cities hundreds of miles inland. His authority and wealth come not from a military title, but from his role in this intricate, peaceful commerce. The absence of obvious central palaces has led to fascinating interpretations. Perhaps power was held by a council of elders, a merchant oligarchy, or a priestly class that governed through control of resources, ideology, and ritual rather than military force. The few depictions of human figures show what may be deities or ritual participants, not conquering heroes. Even in decline, the cities show little evidence of violent destruction. They seem to have gradually been abandoned, their order slowly unraveling, perhaps due to environmental shifts like the changing course of rivers or shifts in trade patterns. This civilization forces a reflective, almost radical question upon us. Has our historical imagination become too narrow, equating power solely with kings, conquests, and conspicuous monuments? The Indus Valley presents a millennia-long experiment in urban life where power might have been expressed as reliability, as cleanliness, as fair measure in the marketplace, and as a shared script of symbols understood from the mountains to the sea. Their greatest legacy may be the silent, enduring proof that a complex society can choose a different path, building its monuments not upward toward the sky, but outward into the foundations of a well-ordered, cooperative world. A farmer in England scans his fields with a free satellite app, searching for patterns in the growth of his wheat. He notices a series of faint, parallel lines and perfect rectangles etched into the crop, shadows of something ancient beneath the soil. He contacts the local Archaeological Trust, and soon, ground-penetrating radar confirms the outline of a sprawling Roman villa, complete with mosaic floors and a bathhouse, its story waiting just beneath the plow. This is not a rare fluke, it is the new normal in a field undergoing a quiet revolution. The search for lost cities has broken free of the academic dig site and entered the digital public square, transforming every curious person with an internet connection into a potential partner in discovery. This is the age of public archaeology, where the map of our past is being redrawn not just by specialists with doctorates, but by retired teachers, hobbyists, and schoolchildren, a global community united by a shared fascination. This movement thrives on a simple, powerful principle that many eyes see more than a few. The sheer volume of data generated by modern surveys, from satellite imagery covering entire continents to millions of LIDAR tiles and decades of unpublished excavation records, is more than any single research team could ever process. The solution has been to crowdsource the analysis, inviting the public to help sift through this digital landscape. Platforms like Global Explorer, founded by archaeologist Sarah Parkak, offer online training modules that teach volunteers how to identify the telltale signs of looting pits or subtle archaeological features in satellite photos. Another project, called Microarchaeology, enlists volunteers to transcribe handwritten museum catalog cards or trace outlines of artifacts in old photographs, digitizing archives and making them searchable for researchers everywhere. The process is designed to be intuitive and rewarding, turning a complex task into a collective game of historical detective work. This collaboration takes many forms beyond the screen. Across Europe, responsible metal detectorists, working in formal partnerships with archaeologists through programs like the Portable Antiquities Scheme, have recovered hundreds of thousands of artifacts, from Roman coins to Viking jewelry, each find precisely logged with a GPS coordinate, creating an invaluable map of past activity. Local historical societies act as guardians of community memory, recording oral histories, preserving old photographs, and documenting vanishing landmarks before they are lost to development. Even the humble walker, using an app to log an overgrown stone wall or a strange earthwork during a countryside hike, can contribute a vital data point. The successes are staggering and global. In Kazakhstan, an archaeologist reviewing satellite images flagged by a local schoolteacher identified thousands of previously unknown burial mounds, rewriting the understanding of ancient nomadic empires. In Norway, a crowdsourced analysis of ground-penetrating radar data by enthusiasts led to the rediscovery of a monumental Viking ship burial mound, its outline hidden beneath a farmer's field. To understand the personal thrill of this work, follow a citizen archaeologist named Elena. Sitting at her kitchen table with a laptop, she logs into a platform and loads a square of LIDAR data from the Peruvian Andes. The software removes the digital tree cover, revealing the bare earth. She zooms in, her eyes scanning for geometric shapes, straight lines that nature rarely makes. Then she sees it, a faint but unmistakable series of concentric terraces climbing a hillside, a pattern that suggests an ancient agricultural complex. With a click, she tags the location for professional review. In that moment, she may be the first person in over 500 years to lay eyes on that lost structure. Her contribution, multiplied by thousands of volunteers around the world, accelerates discovery at an unprecedented pace. This shift changes our relationship with history itself. It moves us from passive consumers of a finished story into active participants in its ongoing creation. The reflective question this poses is direct and inviting. How might you contribute to this story? You do not need a trowel or a degree. You might spend 20 minutes classifying pottery fragments from a dig in Cyprus, or you might simply learn to observe the landscape around you with a more questioning eye during your daily walk. The tools are on your phone, and the need for careful, curious observers has never been greater. The search for lost cities, once the solitary quest of a few intrepid explorers, has become a team sport with an open, global roster, proving that the next great discovery might not begin in a university lab, but with a curious person looking at the world a little differently. The skyline here is not built upward but carved downward into the soft volcanic rock. Beneath the fairy chimneys and rolling plains of Cappadocia lies a world turned inside out, a vast, interconnected network of underground cities that redefines our very idea of urban space. These are not simple caves or temporary shelters. Recent comprehensive surveys using three-dimensional laser scanning have revealed them to be meticulously engineered subterranean metropolises, capable of sustaining entire populations for months, if not longer. Speleoarchaeologists, specialists in cave archaeology, now describe sites like Derinkuyu and Kaymakli as inverted skyscrapers, complex vertical habitats descending over 200 feet into the earth. The scans map a staggering reality: 18 distinct levels, miles of tunnels, and spaces that could house tens of thousands of individuals along with their livestock and supplies. This is not a refuge, it is a full-fledged city existing in the negative space of the landscape. The evidence for permanent, sophisticated habitation is carved into the stone itself. Engineering solved the fundamental problems of life underground. Dozens of ventilation shafts, some over 300 feet deep, channeled fresh air to the lowest chambers, a prehistoric air conditioning system. Deep wells tapped into the groundwater, ensuring a secure supply. There were spaces for every function of a thriving community, not just sleeping quarters. Archaeologists have identified dedicated stables for animals, churches with carved altars and frescoes, communal kitchens, wineries for pressing grapes, and even schools. The entrances were protected by massive, circular stone doors, each weighing several tons, that could be rolled shut from the inside, sealing the community away from any threat on the surface. This was a society prepared not for a brief emergency, but for a prolonged, organized retreat. The reasons for such an extreme architectural choice are written in the environment and history of the region. The soft, tough rock was uniquely carvable, allowing generations to expand their underground homes with relative ease. On the surface, Cappadocia experiences extreme temperature swings, from scorching summers to freezing winters. The underground cities maintained a constant, cool temperature year-round, offering natural climate control, but the primary driver was likely security. The region was a crossroads, periodically swept by conflicts and invasions. To retreat underground was to become invisible, to remove your entire community from the map of surface warfare. It was the ultimate defensive strategy. To understand daily life, picture a community during a time of heightened alert. Watchmen on the surface spot dust clouds on the horizon, signaling approaching riders. A signal is given. Across the plain, families gather their most vital belongings and herd their animals toward hidden entrances. They descend through narrow, easily defensible passages, moving deeper and deeper. Behind them, the great stone doors rumble into place. Now the inverted city comes to life. In the dim oil lamplight, a coordinated routine begins. People move along main arterial tunnels to their assigned quarters. Animals are led to the stables on the upper levels, where their waste could be managed and their body heat utilized. Children are taken to the chapels for instruction, the sound of their voices echoing softly off the vaulted ceilings. At the bottom of a ventilation shaft, a woman draws cool, clean water from the well. The air, though still, feels fresh as it circulates from the surface far above. For weeks or months, this community lives, works, and worships in this carved world, a testament to human adaptability and collective planning. This raises a profound psychological question. What happens to a society that chooses to live in perpetual twilight, disconnected from the sun and sky? What social structures, rituals, and codes of conduct must evolve to maintain order and morale in such a confined, inward-looking world? These underground complexes are far more than hideouts. They are a radical reimagining of the city itself, proving that human civilization can flourish not only by reaching for the heavens, but by mastering the deep, quiet earth. That photograph of our planet hanging alone in the black void did more than inspire environmental awareness. It gave us the ultimate map. The future frontier for finding lost cities is no longer just on Earth, but in the vantage point we gain from looking back at it from space, and eventually, in how we will study our own settlements on other worlds. This is the dawn of space archaeology, where instruments designed to probe distant planets are now trained on our own, revealing secrets invisible from any other perspective. Specialists collaborating with agencies like NASA and the European Space Agency describe this as a paradigm shift in scale and sensitivity. We are moving beyond simply taking pictures from orbit to reading the planet's subtle chemical diary. The next leap involves constellations of satellites equipped not just with cameras, but with sensors that detect the faintest thermal, mineral, and molecular traces of ancient human activity. The principle is one of indirect sensing. A buried stone wall retains heat differently than the surrounding soil. A long-vanished wooden palisade changes the chemistry of the ground above it. A buried irrigation canal affects the moisture content and therefore the plant growth for miles. Advanced satellites can measure these minute differences. Synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, is a game-changing tool. Unlike optical imagery, radar penetrates cloud cover and can even see through dry surface layers like sand. By analyzing how radar waves scatter back from the ground, scientists can detect the geometric patterns of buried foundations and roadways. Thermal inertia mapping is another powerful technique. It measures how slowly or quickly a material heats up during the day and cools at night. A buried adobe wall in the American Southwest, for instance, will hold heat longer than loose sand, creating a thermal signature that a sensitive satellite in space can detect long after the structure itself has crumbled to dust. Looking further ahead, researchers theorize about techniques like space-based muon tomography. Muons are subatomic particles that constantly rain down from the atmosphere, passing through solid matter. By measuring how muons are absorbed, scientists on the ground can create X-ray-like images of large structures, like the interior of a pyramid. A satellite-based system could, in theory, scan entire landscapes in this way, peering deep into the Earth on a continental scale. This orbital perspective has already scored remarkable successes. For decades, the lost city of Aram of the Pillars, mentioned in historical texts, was a legend buried somewhere in the sands of the Arabian Peninsula. In the 1980s, researchers analyzing radar images taken from the Space Shuttle Challenger identified ancient caravan routes converging on a specific spot in the desert of Oman. Ground investigation later confirmed the site, revealing a major settlement that once controlled the lucrative frankincense trade. The technique used then has evolved exponentially, with modern SAR satellites providing data of incredible clarity, capable of tracing the ghostly outlines of walls and streets beneath meters of dry sand. This forward-looking gaze also extends beyond Earth to a new field we might call exoarchaeology. Its first subjects are not alien civilizations but our own. The Apollo landing sites on the Moon, with their lunar modules, science packages, and even astronauts' footprints, are now formally considered protected heritage zones. Future archaeologists, whether human or robotic, will study these sites to understand the technology, methods, and cultural practices of early space exploration. They will analyze how materials degrade in the harsh lunar vacuum, a record of our first tentative steps off our home world. This leads to a dual reflection, one that looks both back and forward in time. From an orbital platform 1,000 years from now, what traces of our current global civilization will remain clearly visible? The geometric shapes of our largest cities and agricultural fields will likely persist. But will the satellite signatures of our landfills, our altered waterways, or our vast road networks tell a story of ingenuity or of strain? And when we one day send archaeologists to Mars, what will they make of the silent, dust-covered rovers we have already sent, or the potential habitats future colonists might build? These machines and outposts will become the first lost cities of another world, waiting for their story to be recovered. The final frontier for understanding our past is now, quite literally, above us, offering a silent, all-seeing eye on the history we have written across our planet and are beginning to inscribe upon others. From this height, the Mississippi River is a silver thread stitching together a forgotten metropolis. The view from Monk's Mound today overlooks highways and suburbs, but the earth beneath your feet remembers a different skyline, one built not of steel and glass, but of packed clay and human ambition. Cahokia was the beating heart of a continent, a city whose scale and sophistication forces a complete reimagining of North America before European contact. For generations, the story told was one of scattered tribes, not urban centers. Decades of meticulous excavation, combined with ground-penetrating radar and soil chemistry analysis, have rewritten that story entirely. This was not a village, it was the paramount ceremonial and political hub of the Mississippian world, a network of cultures connected by trade, religion, and a shared way of life that stretched from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. The evidence speaks of a society of staggering complexity and reach. At its peak around the year 1100, Cahokia may have been home to 15,000 people, a population that rivaled London of the same era. The city was a carefully planned landscape of power. Over 120 earthen mounds, precisely shaped and positioned, created a sacred geography. The Grand Plaza, larger than 35 football fields placed side by side, was a stage for public life. Alignments of wooden posts, known as woodhenge, functioned as a solar calendar, marking the equinoxes and solstices to coordinate the agricultural and ritual cycle of the city. This was a society deeply in tune with celestial patterns, embedding cosmic order into the very layout of their home. The social hierarchy was pronounced and visible. Elites lived on the tops of the major mounds like Monk's Mound, which rises 100 feet tall, a colossal undertaking that required moving over 14 million baskets of earth by hand. Their status was displayed through objects that spoke of far-flung connections. Archaeologists find ceremonial axes made from copper mined near Lake Superior, beads crafted from shells harvested from the Gulf of Mexico, and mica sheets from the Appalachian Mountains. These were not local items, they were gifts, tribute, or trade goods that flowed into Cahokia, proving it sat at the center of a vast economic web. The city itself produced extraordinary art, from finely carved stone figurines to pottery painted with the distinctive symbols of the southeastern ceremonial complex, a religious iconography that spread for hundreds of miles. Public spectacle reinforced this social order. Picture the Grand Plaza on a festival day. The air hums with the sound of thousands of voices. In the center, two athletes prepare for a game of chunky. They roll a polished stone disc across the smooth ground, then hurl long spears, aiming to land them as close to the stone stopping point as possible. The crowd erupts, placing bets on the outcome. High on the mound, leaders watch, adorned in copper ornaments and feathered cloaks, their very presence a display of the city's wealth and authority. This game was more than sport. It was a ritual of chance and skill that bound the community together. The spiritual life of Cahokia was profound and, at times, involved practices that modern sensibilities find challenging to understand. Excavations in certain mounds have uncovered what researchers interpret as memorial sites where individuals were laid to rest with great ceremony, sometimes alongside elaborate offerings. Some scholars, drawing on ethnographic parallels and the arrangement of remains, suggest these sites may represent a belief in sacrificial rituals meant to ensure cosmic balance or consecrate a sacred space. These findings are approached with immense respect by archaeologists, particularly those from descendant communities, who emphasize understanding these acts within their full cultural and spiritual context, not through a modern lens. The focus is on what these practices reveal about the Cahokians' worldview, their beliefs about renewal, and the solemn responsibilities of leadership. Then, by the 14th century, the city's energy began to fade. The Grand Plaza saw fewer gatherings, and mounds were no longer maintained. The decline was likely not a single event, but a slow unraveling. Current theories point to a combination of environmental strain, such as deforestation and resource depletion, and possible social upheaval. The climate may have shifted, affecting crop yields. Whatever the precise causes, the people gradually dispersed, joining or founding smaller chiefdoms elsewhere. The city was not conquered, it was gradually returned to the earth. This leads to a necessary and reflective question. Why does a civilization of this magnitude, which built the largest pre-Columbian structure north of Mexico, often feel like a footnote in our popular history books? The story of Cahokia, as emphasized by many Native American scholars today, is not one of mysterious disappearance. It is a story of cultural flourishing, innovation, and resilience whose legacy lived on in the nations of the Southeast. Its omission speaks to the narratives we have chosen to prioritize. Cahokia forces us to reimagine the map of the ancient world, to see North America not as an empty wilderness awaiting discovery, but as a vibrant, interconnected continent where great cities rose, thrived, and transformed, leaving silent, grassy mounds as monuments to a forgotten urban age. The honest answer to many of archaeology's greatest questions is a simple, humbling admission. We are not entirely sure. A researcher can point to a line of post holes, a collection of strange artifacts, or a peculiar arrangement of stones and confess that the evidence refuses to tell a single, clear story. This moment is not a failure but a fundamental truth of the field. For all our lasers and satellites, archaeology remains a science of probabilities and informed conjecture, a continuous dialogue with a silent past. As philosophers of history note, we reconstruct narratives from fragments, and those narratives must remain flexible, open to revision with each new scrap of data unearthed. Theories are not set in stone, they are living ideas that evolve, and sometimes are completely overturned as the evidence demands. Consider the enduring enigma of Stonehenge on the English plain. For generations, the dominant theory framed it as a precise astronomical calendar, a Neolithic computer for predicting solstices. Yet recent excavations have revealed a landscape soaked in ritual activity for centuries before the great stones were raised. This has prompted alternative interpretations. Could it have been a destination for healing pilgrimages, its blue stones believed to possess curative powers, or was its primary function acoustic, designed to create a powerful soundscape of drums and chanting within the stone circle, an immersive ritual experience? Each theory is supported by some evidence, yet none can claim to be the definitive answer. The stones keep their secret, reminding us that a single site can hold multiple, overlapping truths. This ambiguity extends to astonishing artifacts. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from an ancient shipwreck, is a breathtakingly complex bronze gear system often called the world's first analog computer. But was it a unique masterpiece, a one-off marvel of Greek engineering? Or was it part of a wider tradition of such devices, most of which are lost to us? The single surviving example leaves the question tantalizingly open. Similarly, the symbols inscribed on pottery and figurines from the Vinca culture in southeastern Europe, dating back over 7,000 years, present a profound puzzle. Their repetitive, standardized nature suggests a system of communication. But is this proto-writing conveying specific meaning, or are they ritual marks, ownership symbols, or decorative motifs with a shared cultural vocabulary? Without a Rosetta Stone, we may never know for certain. To navigate these gaps, archaeologists employ careful strategies. They use ethnographic analogy, looking at how modern or historical societies used similar objects or structures, while always cautioning against direct parallels. They construct multiple competing models to explain a site, testing each against the evidence. In every reconstruction, digital or in a museum display, the ethical practitioner clearly labels what is solid evidence, like an excavated wall, and what is interpretation, like the color of a roof or the clothing on a figurine. This honesty preserves the mystery within the science. A stark case that embodies this uncertainty was unearthed at a site in Sweden, known as the Tomb of the Sunken Skulls. Here, archaeologists found the remains of several individuals from the Mesolithic era. The arrangement was deeply unsettling to modern minds. Skulls had been deliberately placed on stakes within a lake, while other bones were deposited separately. The ritual logic behind this practice is utterly lost to us. Was it an act of veneration, a way to honor and keep close the remains of ancestors? Was it a form of trophy taking after a conflict? Or was it a spiritual practice meant to tether spirits to a specific place? The evidence presents the what, but the why remains a haunting void, a powerful reminder that past cultures operated with worldviews and logics we may never fully reconstruct. This leads to a reflective, perhaps counterintuitive question. In our drive to reimagine and rebuild these lost worlds with digital certainty, do we risk losing something essential? Is the enduring mystery, the unanswered question, sometimes more valuable than a definitive answer? A mystery keeps the past alive as a subject of active wonder and endless inquiry. It invites every new generation to look at the evidence afresh. The most sophisticated reimagining, therefore, is one performed with profound humility. It uses every tool at our disposal to listen to the whispers of the past, while having the courage to say, when the whispers fade into silence, that some stories may remain forever just beyond our grasp. And in that space of not knowing, the human imagination and our respect for those who came before finds its most honest and enduring home. The ticket hall of Pisa's San Rossor train station conceals a harbor. During routine construction in the late 1990s, workers unearthed not just foundations, but the weathered hull of an ancient Roman ship, resting silently where travelers now hurry to catch their train. This was not a single wreck, but a graveyard of history. Subsequent excavations revealed a stunning cluster of vessels, over 30 in total, from small fishing boats to a massive cargo ship, all buried in a deep layer of mud and perfectly preserved far from the modern coastline. This discovery, known as the Ships of Pisa, forces a complete reimagining of the city's geography. Geoarchaeologists leading the project describe the work as urban paleontology, peeling back the modern landscape to read the story of a forgotten shore. The evidence lies in the meticulous layers. Each ship was found with its cargo still in place, from amphorae of wine and olive oil to stacks of roof tiles and the personal belongings of the crew. More telling than the ships themselves was the thick, uniform blanket of blue-gray silt that encased them. This was not the slow accumulation of a marsh, but the sudden, catastrophic deposit of a massive flood, likely from the nearby Serchio or Arno rivers overflowing their banks. By analyzing the pollen, microscopic shells, and sediment grains within this silt, scientists could reconstruct the environment. They found a mix of freshwater and saltwater species, painting a picture of a sheltered, brackish lagoon, a perfect natural harbor that once lapped at the edges of a thriving Roman port city. This was a landscape in motion. Pisa was not always the inland city we know today. For centuries, it was a powerful maritime republic. Its strength derived from a complex network of rivers and lagoons that provided access to the Tyrrhenian Sea. The Roman port was a bustling hub, but the environment was dynamic. Deforestation in the uplands and intensive farming along the river valleys increased erosion upstream. With each rain, more soil washed into the rivers, which then deposited their heavy loads of silt when they slowed upon reaching the coastal plain. The very rivers that gave Pisa life began to choke it. The lagoon harbors gradually filled in, transforming from deep waterways into shallow marshes and finally into solid, buildable land. The city's relationship with the sea stretched, then snapped. Follow the final voyage of a grain ship from Sardinia, centuries after the Roman era. It sails into the familiar lagoon entrance, but the channel is narrower now, the water noticeably shallower. It docks at a wooden wharf that seems closer to the city walls than it once was. Years pass and the ship is retired, left to rot at its mooring in a backwater of the harbor. Then, one violent storm season, the rivers swell beyond their banks. A wall of water and mud surges through the lagoon, sweeping the old vessel from its resting place and driving it inland before the thick, suffocating silt settles over it, sealing it in a watery tomb that will, over centuries, become dry earth. This process did not happen once, but repeatedly across generations, each flood layering more land over the past, pushing the coastline steadily westward. The mighty fleet of the Maritime Republic was not defeated in battle, but made obsolete by geography, literally buried by the very landscape it sought to master. It prompts a quiet reflection on our own time. The geography of our coastal cities is not fixed. As sea levels shift and storms intensify, what parts of our own harbors and waterfronts might one day be considered inland, with the traces of our ships and docks lying buried beneath future parks or neighborhoods, silent witnesses to a shore that moved on? A new map of the ancient world is being drawn, not with the bold lines of empires, but with the delicate, glowing threads of connection. Our journey through these reimagined cities reveals a single, transformative truth. The pre-modern world was not a collection of isolated, silent civilizations waiting to be discovered. It was a vibrant, humming network, a global antiquity in constant, surprising dialogue. Leading world historians now describe this as a fundamental paradigm shift in our understanding. For too long, we studied cultures as if they were specimens in separate jars, each developing in pristine isolation. The latest evidence shatters that jar. It shows us a planet where people, goods, and ideas were in motion across staggering distances, weaving a web of influence that spanned continents long before the age of European exploration. Consider the material evidence that tells this story. Jade from the highlands of Guatemala has been found in Olmec centers on the Mexican Gulf Coast, a journey of over 1,000 kilometers through dense jungle and across cultural boundaries. In the second millennium before Common Era, the tin that fueled the Bronze Age empires of the Mediterranean traveled from mines in Central Asia. The architectural concept of the pyramid appears not as a single invention, but as a powerful idea that manifested independently yet also traveled, evolving from the stepped platforms of Mesopotamia to the smooth slopes of Egypt and the towering temples of Mesoamerica. Even challenges like illness likely moved along these early highways of exchange, with research suggesting pathogens could have traveled from population centers in Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, carried by traders along established routes. This interconnectedness forces us to abandon three persistent misconceptions. First, the myth of the pristine, untouched culture. Every society we have explored, from the Maya to the Swahili, was a product of both local genius and external inspiration. Second, our overemphasis on dramatic collapse narratives. As we saw with the Minoans and the Maya, the end was rarely a sudden vanishing act, but more often a long, complex process of transformation, resilience, and migration. Third, our chronic underestimation of scale and complexity. The LIDAR maps of Guatemala, the hydraulic grids of Angkor, and the sprawling compounds of Teotihuacan all testify to populations and urban planning on a level that rivals or surpasses many medieval European states. Common themes emerge from these disparate cities. The mastery of water was a universal key to power, from Petra's channels to Cahokia's aligned posts marking flood cycles. Social and political structures displayed incredible variety, from Teotihuacan's possible collective rule to the merchant councils of the Swahili coast, proving there was no single blueprint for civilization. And always, the environment was a silent partner, offering bounty and presenting limits, with communities demonstrating both brilliant adaptation and, at times, a tragic failure to adjust. To see this global system in action, picture a single year around 1000 Common Era. In the American Midwest, a Cahokian artisan finishes a ceremonial cup, its design influenced by motifs from the Gulf Coast. That same year, a ship departs from the Swahili port of Kilwa, its hold filled with gold bound for India, where it will be minted into coins that may eventually circulate in Baghdad. Across the Indian Ocean, an engineer in Angkor monitors the water level in the West Baray, using knowledge passed down through generations. And in the mountains of Anatolia, a family in Cappadocia descends into their underground city, a technology of security born from a landscape of conflict. These individuals would never meet, yet they were all participants in a vast, interlocking human story. So, look at a map of the world. Erase the modern borders and the names you know. Instead, see it as a canvas of potential connections of river highways, monsoon sailing routes, and overland trails like the Silk Road. Imagine the jade, the tin, the ideas, and the stories that moved along them. The points of light we have rekindled, from Great Zimbabwe to the ships of Pisa, are not isolated stars. They are nodes in a constellation, a forgotten web of human achievement that challenges us to see our shared past not as a series of separate rooms, but as one great interconnected hall. This new map hums with a question: what other threads, now broken and invisible, are we still waiting to find? The soil beneath our feet is not a dead archive, but a living, breathing manuscript. We have walked through cities reborn from laser light and chemical whispers, and the greatest discovery is not a single pyramid or a buried ship, but a new understanding of history itself. It is not a fixed story written in stone waiting to be memorized. It is a continuous, dynamic conversation. Every time we ask a new question of the past or develop a new way to listen, the past answers back, reshaping the narrative we thought we knew. A single technological leap, like LIDAR piercing a jungle canopy, does not just add a footnote to a textbook. It rewrites entire chapters, transforming whispered legends into tangible city grids and turning isolated mysteries into sprawling, interconnected metropolises. The journey leaves us with two profound companions: humility and wonder. Humility, because for every question we answer, a dozen more emerge from the shadows. We must stand before the silent stones of Great Zimbabwe or the vast plazas of Teotihuacan and admit that we are only beginning to comprehend the full depth of their stories. And wonder, because the evidence reveals a staggering tapestry of human ingenuity, from the water engineers of Petra to the collective planners of the Indus Valley. Ancient societies found breathtakingly diverse ways to solve the universal puzzles of community, survival, and meaning. The archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler once offered a vital correction to our perspective. He said, "We are not digging up things, we are digging up people." This is the ultimate gift of this reimagining. The lost cities are no longer just collections of ruins and artifacts in a museum case. They are once again populated. We can now glimpse the Cahokian athlete rolling the chunky stone, the Nabatean mason carving a water channel, the Minoan trader navigating a disrupted sea. We see their ambitions, their daily routines, and the challenges they faced, challenges of resource management, social cohesion, and environmental change that resonate with an uncanny familiarity in our own time. Their world, now coming back into focus, holds up a mirror to ours. So the next time you walk through a familiar landscape, pause for a moment, look past the surface. That gentle rise in a farmer's field, that odd alignment of trees along a riverbank, that local place name whose origin everyone has forgotten, each could be a silent clue waiting for its moment to speak. The search is far from over. Every satellite pass, every soil core, every collaborative click from a citizen archaeologist online is another page carefully recovered from the greatest story ever told, the ongoing human saga. If exploring these reawakened worlds has sparked your curiosity, consider subscribing for more journeys into history's deepest mysteries. I would love to hear your thoughts below. Which of these reimagined cities reshaped your view of the past the most? And what ancient mystery do you hope will be the next to yield its secrets? The conversation with our past is just getting started, and your wonder is the most essential